Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Louisiana Unfiltered. I'm Kiran Chawla. Don't forget, if you like our work, please subscribe, like, share, and don't forget to leave us your reviews. Let's go back to December 31st, 2022. New Year's Eve, meaning New Year's Eve parties and last-minute preparations. But amid what should be ringing in a new year, devastation and heartache, with parents left asking one question: why? Why was it their little girls killed by a police officer in a pursuit? That was the case for two best friends and high school cheerleaders in a very close-knit parish, West Baton Rouge. One of their moms said, "Sure, you can have a small get-together at the house as long as you clean up and get it ready." Well, that's what they were doing when they decided to go run a quick errand. That errand would be the last time those two young girls were alive. 17-year-old Maggie Dunn and 15-year-old Caroline Gill were in the car with Maggie's older brother Liam Dunn in the back seat. They were leaving out of the neighborhood to get onto the main highway in a small town, Brusly. They had the green light when they were turning onto LA1. At the same time, a man got into an argument with his parents in Baton Rouge before stealing his dad's car. Baton Rouge police officers pursued the driver, but then he crossed into another parish, West Baton Rouge, before ending up on the same highway Maggie and Caroline were on. Addis police officer David Cothran joined in the pursuit to assist BRPD officers. As Cothran approaches the same light Maggie and Caroline are about to turn at, he never brakes, plowing right through the red light into their car. And to make it all the worse, 9 seconds before the crash, his own dash camera catches him saying, quote, "Fuck, this is gonna hurt." Maggie and Caroline die at the scene. The rear passenger, Liam Dunn, is rushed to a hospital and stayed there for 2 weeks, with his family praying he wakes up. During those 2 weeks, though, his sister was laid to rest. Not only did he miss his sister's funeral, no one had told him yet that Maggie and Caroline did not make it. Today, you will hear from Liam Dunn speak up for the very first time. Despite no one telling him, he somehow knew his sister and Caroline did not survive. The officer was arrested and charged with 2 counts of negligent homicide. This past Monday, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter and 1 count of negligent injuring. He has been sentenced to 32 years with 22 years suspended, meaning roughly 10 years behind bars. Inside that courtroom on Monday, there was not a single dry eye as Caroline and Maggie's families looked Cothran in the eyes as they read their victim impact statements, telling him his one action issued them a life sentence. In this episode, we sit down with both families. This is Louisiana Unfiltered. Welcome back, everyone. We are joined by Maggie Dunn's mom, Erin Martin, and her older brother, Liam Dunn. Liam was in the back seat of the car the day of this crash, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's a miracle he's with us today. It is.
It is.
It's an amazing miracle. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
We just wrapped up the case with David Cothran. That was the former Addis police officer who crashed into the car. He took a plea deal earlier this week, pled guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter and sentenced to 32 years, 22 of that suspended, so basically serving 10 years. I want to start, Erin. You guys gave your blessings to that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that we were happy about, but we were willing to take that plea, to give that plea, if it meant keeping Liam from having to go through, some drawn out court case, from having to see things, hear things. He still doesn't even remember the wreck. So if we could avoid, some drawn out court case. And you have to remember that in the beginning, he was charged with negligent homicide, which carries a maximum of 5 years. So we sort of felt like anything above that was probably, we had to see it as some kind of, a small victory as it is. So
yeah, because I feel like if you were to roll the dice and go to trial, you don't know what's going to happen. So I think it was
valid
good.
Point.
I think it was good to just.
And we felt like a jury was going to find him guilty.
Yeah, he would have been found guilty,
minute,
no matter what. It's just you don't know what's.
Sentencing was completely up to the judge. So
Liam, were you okay with this?
Oh, I was completely fine with it. I was going to do everything that I wasn't going to be selfish and try to pick something just for myself. I wanted to make sure that all my family and the Gills agreed with it too. So
this is your first time speaking. What's the most important thing you, I guess, want to say to the public? Why are you speaking today?
I'm just I really want to speak so I can show like my story and show like how hard of a road it's been, but I'm still doing good now and I'm back on track finally.
Let's start there. So I remember I've been there for every step of the way. In fact, when you pulled up in that car today, I was taken right back to your ride home in that Bronco.
Yeah.
You were excited, but you could tell you were in so much pain. And then when you pulled into the house, you could tell it wasn't you. But the Whataburger made you really happy.
that was him.
It was just awesome to finally be home because I had to go from one hospital to the rehab hospital. I was just ready to be home, sleep in my own bed. And it was awesome to see I didn't think there was going to be that many people with all the signs, and then to see all my friends again.
At first he was mad about that. When we turned onto
what I'm
the road
saying.
and we saw that one cop with the lights
like,
he was like, what did y'all do? What did y'all do? I was like, just go with it, dude. And then when we started pulling through people, he was like, you could see the smile.
It was good to see everybody again because a lot of people came to the hospital when I was still under, so I never even remember them coming.
Well, let's start from the beginning, and only if you're comfortable with it.
Oh, yeah.
Take us to that day.
The day I came home or the day I woke up?
Take us to December 31st, 2022.
I just remember, I don't remember much from that day. I do remember waking up in the morning. Mom, if y'all want to have people over, y'all got to clean.
You were going to have a New Year's Eve party that night.
Yeah, that night.
Okay.
And then
both of them
I think
had friends.
One of us went to the store. I think Mom, because I looked back on my messages and I had sent Maggie the grocery list, so I guess she went to the store. She came back. I think we were going to Sonic. I don't even remember getting in the car, and that's pretty much after that. I don't remember anything until I woke up.
He made a comment about rolling meatballs because I was making sausage rolls for him, and he made some comment about we have enough meatballs or something in the hospital.
Oh,
that's the only thing he seemed to remember from that day. At the hospital before they intubated him, he was saying something about, like, I need to get my truck. He thought he was driving his truck, and the last time he had driven his truck was the night before. So he didn't seem to remember anything from that day.
It's like you blacked out.
When I woke up? You talking about when I woke up?
Yeah, you said something about meatballs. That's the only thing you remembered from that day.
Yeah, I don't know. I also thought I had wrecked my own truck. Cause one of my friends, my best friend Brody, he lives in St. Francisville. I had went to his house like 2 days before, and for some reason, I guess I just tried to piece the two together or something. I thought I had wrecked on the way home.
So none of it.
It was like I was sleeping for 2 weeks, but I was also, my mind just never stopped going. I was like dreaming, but it was like a day's worth of dream. It was like I was living a day, but it went through 2 weeks in my head.
Do you recall waking up?
Oh yeah, I recall waking up.
Tell us about that.
I just heard the nurse was like, cough, cough, and I heard a suction. I thought I was at the dentist. Now my eyes adjusted to the light, and I was like, what's going on? And they were like, you broke your leg. I was like, I didn't think it was that big of a deal. I've never broken a bone. I didn't think it was that big of a deal when you just break your leg. You'd be in the hospital with all my family around. I didn't know.
So you had, at this point, you don't know what else happened.
No, I didn't know that for like 2 or 3 days after.
Walk us through all of that. Walk us through the waking up and finally learning reality.
Waking up, I was still, the first day, I was kind of tired. My voice was, I really didn't have a voice because of the tube. My voice was like really hoarse. And I remember a few people coming in that day, but I was kind of still out of it. And one funny thing I remember, the first night, I did not sleep a second the first night because I guess the whatever really strong medicine they had me on at first was starting to wear off. And I went to scratch my face, and I realized I was tied down from the first day when I got there. They had to tie me down because I was pulling off all the cables and stuff because I wanted to go home. And I was like, Mom, I was trying to scream at the top of my lungs, but my voice, she woke up. I was like, untie me. I was like about ready to break my other wrist because you don't understand what it feels like to be tied down and you can't get out until you actually.
Was that an accident that
No,
they left
no,
you
they
tied
did it.
down?
Oh, no,
They did it because
he
I
still
kept.
had a lot of IVs and.
And they said I was like, they just never untied me. And like the first day, I really wasn't moving a lot because I was real tired and I was kind of barely awake, honestly. She wouldn't untie me, so I was mad.
All night.
I watched the sun go down and come up that day.
So at what point did you find out about Maggie and Caroline?
Probably, I think it was the day after the funeral. No. The day after the funeral was the day I woke up.
2 days.
2 days.
So he had surgery on Thursday the 12th, and their funeral, or Maggie's funeral, was Friday the 13th. They woke him up on Saturday the 14th, and I think we told him on Sunday. We wanted to make sure he was
Whenever
still
they told me,
stable.
I was like, I wasn't really that shocked. So I guess it was like stored in my brain. I just couldn't like pull it out to tell you, where. And I never asked where she was at whenever I would see my other sisters and my parents.
Did you know?
I feel like in the back of my mind I kind of did, but I couldn't like just
Verbalize
tell you, hey, well, what happened to Matt? Like I couldn't bring it up, but I feel like it was stored in my brain somewhere.
Did you know about Caroline?
No, I mean I didn't know about.
I
didn't technically like really know, but I'm sure it wasn't as big of a surprise to me. So I feel like it was somewhere in my brain, because I mean I probably saw him at the thing. At the wreck. I just don't remember.
We had to tell him he had been in obviously this bad of a wreck. That's why you have broken leg, stitches in your head, your arm's broken, and so we had, that's why you're in this bad of shape. You were in a wreck. And then he kind of had concocted this very crazy story during this 2 weeks. He thought he shot someone. And I've heard people say that when you break your femur, it does sound like a gunshot. And then he thought his dad was following him from gas station to gas station. Yeah, it was weird.
I was in like a dream, and there was these people that kind of looked like my parents. They were like controlling everything I do, and I guess that was, I guess it was like a dream to me. But I guess that was the day where I was pulling all the stuff out, and they were like, "You can't stop."
Two of the men that were there, basically rescuing him out the truck, do kind of have similar characteristics of his dad, and I think that might be why he remembered seeing him at this gas station. And then he was shocked. He like kept he was very concerned. He thought he did shoot somebody, and so
I don't know.
Like, we had to tell him how bad the wreck was, but we never gave him details. And then it got to the point where he kind of was asking so many questions that we stopped visitors coming in for that last day before we told him, because we didn't want him to ask too much. But he never asked about where's Maggie. So we did think that was kind of strange, because so many of his friends had come in to see him after he had woken up that he never said, like, where's Maggie? Like, so we started stopping
Tori
visitors.
wasn't really coming back there that much
We asked
either,
her not to come back at that point because we didn't want him to say, like, well, where's Maggie? Why is Maggie not here? So.
And Tori's the older sister. Aaron, take me to those 2 weeks and having to go through that decision of you have to go to the funeral of one of your child, but your other child doesn't even know yet.
Well, and it was, it's crazy, too, to have these opposite emotions, and we've said that from the beginning, how it was so different for us and the Gills because they had to just go home. And I can't imagine we at least had this one thing to fight for, and that kind of, I don't know if that helped us in our grief or if that just put off grief, but
They do, yeah. Y'all didn't have any distraction. That is one other thing that I admire about the Gills.
Well, and it breaks my heart for them because they had to just go home. You know, I mean, we had to immediately shut that off and worry about him. And I was adamant that we couldn't have any news on in his room. I wouldn't cry in his room. We didn't let anybody talk about Maggie in his room because I wasn't sure what he could hear and what he might process. And I didn't want any kind of him, maybe he could hear something. Maybe he would hear us talking about her or if she had died or anything sad. I didn't want any of that going on in his room because maybe he could hear it, maybe he could understand it, and I didn't want that to give him any kind of setback. Because for that first week, we thought we might lose him. I mean, it was really bad. And so that was hard. We had somebody there with him. Randall and I were kind of switching days with him the entire time, that first 13 days. And when we first got to the hospital, we thought, you know, the initial diagnosis, I guess, leaving the scene was a punctured lung and a broken leg. Punctured lung is not that big of a deal, you know. And by the time before, right after midnight, I think that night is when they decided they were going to have to intubate, and that was devastating, because originally they thought they might do surgery that next day, that next Sunday, the day after, and then he would probably be ambulatory to go to a funeral, you know, but it just kept getting pushed back, having to decide to have a funeral without him even being awake. That was the most devastating because it just seems like, how can you even process grieving for somebody that you didn't even get to have a funeral for or see a funeral for? And to this day, he still hasn't even watched the funeral. And whenever he's ready to do that with me, I'd like him to. Just to be able to see how many people came to see her. That was heartening for me, you know? So.
And Liam, you said that in your victim impact statement. You straight up said that to David Cothran, that you didn't even get to say bye to your sister.
I wish I could have went just because it would have felt good. It wouldn't. I feel like it wouldn't have been as sad, or I mean, it'd still be sad, but it wouldn't be terrible for me because all of my friends, they said it was, couldn't find a seat in there.
We got a special dispensation from the bishop to have a longer wake, and the biggest church that is around our area.
Yeah,
you
probably.
know, I mean,
huge.
And the line never stopped in St. John and Plaquemine. It just for 4 hours. And the line of cars driving from Plaquemine to Brusly, we were already parked and they were still leaving church. I mean, it was just, to see that kind of makes you feel good. We did ask some of his friends to be pallbearers because we thought they would kind of be stand-ins for him. But I mean, that was impossible to think about. And then surgery, when they finally said that he was well enough to have surgery, and it was like, okay, well, we have to have a funeral, you know. So it was like, can we please bump it forward one day? We have to have a funeral this day. So we did. And then one of his friends' moms used to work at Our Lady of the Lake, so she offered to sit with him that Friday. She even wore an old lake sweatshirt so that if he woke up a little bit kind of like, you know, dazed, he would just maybe see the sweatshirt and not wonder why is Miss Christie here in the in my room. She was just doing some rounds or something. You know, and we're all through the funeral, you know, tacky, but like getting little updates, like he's awake. They gave him medicine, you know. I mean, it was just crazy.
For a mom, I remember our very first interview, the title of the story was, "I lost one child, my other is in the ICU." You're putting one child to rest. But like you said, you had hope that Liam's going to wake up.
Oh, and we were determined. And we dealt with a lot of like issues with doctors in the ICU because there were, you know, you have your ER or your ICU team, and he had issues that were way beyond just your regular trauma team. And had we not fought and pushed, he might not be here today. It was just, you know, his lungs were getting worse, and we were like, we need a pulmonologist on this. We need specialists. And you know, the nurses there are amazing because they're like, if I were you, I would push for a pulmonologist. I
Also-
would push for that, you know?
I also had like the best surgeons in Baton Rouge.
Oh,
too.
absolutely.
They were-
Good.
Absolutely.
especially having a, and I talked to him, Dr. Bro at Brock. He said that mine was hard because I was sitting for 14 days before he could do it. 13 days. Said
You
it's-
had trouble even standing up, right?
Oh yeah, as soon as dude, it was crazy because you don't understand how long just sitting like laying there, how much like all your muscle just disappears, and like you can't just sitting up, you feel like you just ran 200 yards. You just get so tired.
When they finally came in just to stand him
Sit
up.
me up, I
remember
need to sit
that.
back down.
Second.
Your mom was keeping me updated. Take me to the news of you're finally getting to go home.
It was awesome. I was texting everybody at the rehab hospital. They said you're kind of good. You can leave. It's not like they don't give you an exact date. It's like whenever you're good enough. So when I was just grinding out the therapy so I could get out of there and go home. I was also the youngest person there.
Yeah.
There's probably nobody under like 60 there. So, and they were all in.
Baton Rouge Rehab is probably one of the best
It
places.
was a great place, and they liked me because I was young. They probably don't get that often.
There were a lot of broken hips, and so the very first day he was there, he had stayed that night, and he went to therapy the first time, and
They
he was
brought
one of
me
the
to-
only people had people staying overnight.
They
So-
brought me to breakfast, and my dad stayed the night with me, and he was still changing, but they like one of the OTs wheeled me to the cafeteria room, and I got there, and I was looking around, and I was like, I thought I was in the nursing home. I texted my dad, I was like, where did y'all bring me?
Don't bring me. And so he just grinded. He got out early.
I think I was only there for like 10 days, 9 days or something.
He was determined to get out.
They would
But
make you like,
they were amazing.
they try to get you adjusted to like moving back home, like getting
Yeah.
in and out of bed.
They're not
all
going to
that.
fix you, but they're going to get you to where you can do things for yourself.
Let's forward to you're walking in the house and all these people are in there. In that very moment, what did it mean to you?
It was awesome because I'd seen all these people when I was in the hospital, but for like 30 minutes, and there was also like 2 at a time. So for all of us to be together, like all of my friends to be together at one time, it was cool.
Tell me about that Whataburger.
I mean,
What did we
I
get
think
you?
I only got-
$500 in gift cards?
yeah, but then Whataburger ended up sending me like 1,000 more, but I think I only got like I don't know where it all went.
Excuse me?
No, I still got it, but I
He
didn't.
still has some.
I only have like 4 gift cards left, but I don't remember. I didn't eat that much Whataburger. I was also buying a lot for my friends and stuff. Like if I was going somewhere, I'd be like, "Y'all want something from Whataburger?" and get everybody food.
Well, and
Kenny.
we did a story on that. We did a story to line the roads for you. I don't think your mom let you see that, so we put it out there. But we also put out you were a big Whataburger fan. That was a lot of the general public who came forward and said they wanted to surprise you.
I really wasn't even that big of a Whataburger fan until I got to college in Lafayette because they had one right by our apartment. And my mom, I remember one month, my mom was like, "What'd you spend $270 some dollars at Whataburger this month?" I was like, "Damn, I didn't think it was that much." But
Kenny
Liam,
added Whataburger on.
like living across the river my whole life, I never really came to the Whataburger on Segan that much. If I was with my parents at Target, I mean, I might go, but not.
Well, his friends bought him a
Often.
blanket and a hat. No, and that first night off the ventilator, they had brought him the thing, and they had talked with the manager about getting a picture of you, like for
they got like
customer
a
of the month
picture
or whatever.
in the Whataburger in like most Whataburgers is like the Wall of Fame or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they got a bunch of people that send in pictures that they put on there, but I couldn't find myself. But I think I went too late though. They probably had it on there when I was in
Kenny
the
like
hospital.
added Whataburger when they came and brought him his blanket and all, and then Whataburger sent him this giant box with like a Snuggie, a Yeti, like things you didn't even know were merchandise, and another $500 in gift cards and a handwritten note from like a vice president saying how like we know your family's going through a tough time and we hope these things bring you some comfort, and like
that's sweet.
oh, it's framed.
That's
it's
sweet.
like amazing.
Whataburger is framed. That's something you don't hear often in a sentence, at least.
No.
But hey,
is
in this
They're a very like
podcast,
family oriented
That's
company.
awesome.
It was like the coolest thing ever.
that's awesome. Liam, the last 15 months, where are you now? What's life been like? Talk Talk to the public. What do you want to say?
The first few months, kind of staring at the four walls of my room, watching a lot of TV, which is something that I don't really do a lot. But after that, as soon as I was able to get around, I was gone. My parents were like, "Oh, I don't want you driving." And I was like, I have to live the rest of my life and drive. So I just went hang out with my friends for the rest of last summer because I really started getting out probably around the end of when school would have ended, like May. And then after that, I went back to work. I took a summer class so I wouldn't be that far behind, and then started back at LSU in the fall.
So where are you now?
I'm at LSU.
What year?
This is my 5th semester since I missed last spring. Yeah, 5th semester.
What's your major?
Construction management. This is my 2nd semester in construction, though. I started out in engineering, but I switched.
Okay. And you touched on something that after the wreck, your mom did not want you driving. And I remember you telling me that you would have panic attacks if he didn't answer the phone.
I still don't drive much. I still get nervous driving myself. And he kind of would fuss at me. He'd be like, it wasn't our fault, but that's not it. I'm scared for him to be far away, and I'm always Life 360 and I'm like, I pay for your phone. You have to have Life 360, I don't care where you're at. I just want to know. This is not something that most people go through. And it's like, I worry constantly about where they are. And he's like, I have to move out at some point. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you can stay here, bubble wrap. Like, can we have another COVID? So we have to do college from home. But he's always been a good driver. Maggie was a good driver. Like, it's just.
It's like crazy odds of that happening.
That's
why I was never scared to drive again, because I was like, this really just happened to me. There's absolutely zero way this could ever happen to me again.
I know. I'm glad he's at LSU.
But I will say,
prefer that to driving the
one thing about the driving, every time I pull up to the red light now, I had to
I do
look.
too.
Like you never really think to do that much.
I hear sirens, I'll have a panic attack.
But Liam, do you understand her fear now?
Oh yeah, I understand. I don't have kids, so I don't know what it's like, but I could see it.
Mom, the last 15 months, tell us where you are now.
Well, I did go back to work in August. I didn't think I was going to be able to do that. My husband, my ex-husband, Randall, they all kind of said, like, you probably need to get back to work. Like, that's going to, that helped. That was something to do. But none of them worked where she was, Tell
our viewership, where do you work?
So I teach at Brusly High School, which has been amazing. That, like, growing up, I was not a person who, like, I knew what I wanted to be. The only thing I ever wanted to be was a mom. And so when I went to college, I just took classes and I figured I'd find out what I liked eventually. And I fell in love with history. And I'm not a public speaker, but it was like, hey, I can take my love of history and find a way to use that and be a mom and, make it work. So I always had summers with my kids. When they got to where I was at, it was like a way for me to be involved. And maybe not as much my oldest, because she was more like the typical teenager, like, leave me alone. Don't be at my, she hated that I knew everything that was going on. But my younger two, they liked me being involved with things. They wanted parties at our house. And I'm like, how many teenagers want, to hang around their teacher on the weekend? But, and so that just made it harder, because going back to the place where you're supposed to see her every day made it hard. But I just knew that staying at home was not healthy. And I felt like that's what she would want me to do. She wouldn't want me just staying home and being sad all the time. And because those were her friends, that was her class, I felt like it was something I needed to try to do. And I have an amazing administration that has been just like, if you need to go, just let me know. And, if something happens, you need to leave. And there have only been a couple days like that this year. So it has been the most wonderful, like, healing thing. My kids have been amazing. And I probably have not been 100% on my game when it comes to teaching, but it's been good for me. And in a lot of ways, I feel like they needed me some too, because they're still healing. And then we had a tragic tragic thing happen at school this year too. We had a shooting, and so they lost a younger friend, and so many of them had trouble dealing with that, and so I kind of feel like I was able to be there for them through that as well, and so it's just been it's something that I definitely needed, but still going through these milestones that she's missing, it's been hard. The first day that I just had to leave was the day that I'm just sitting in first hour, and they just announced who's on homecoming court without any I didn't know that was going to happen, and I just couldn't hold it together because 100% she would have been on homecoming court, and I just had to leave. But there hadn't been many days like that, and it's hard going through those milestones, but I feel like I'm kind of doing that. I'm getting to do that for her, so she has a parking spot that we painted for her, and so I'm just kind of getting to feel these things that she would have been through. I get to hear all the gossip. I get to see all the prom dresses, and I get to, it's been helpful. After this year, I don't know how easy it's going to be. Maybe it'll be easier because I'm not looking for her every day. I'm not seeing all of her friends, but her friends have been just amazing. We had an 18th birthday party. Mm-hmm. We had an 18th birthday party for her, and it was beautiful, and it was healing, and it was special. So just feeling it out. I don't know what we're supposed to do. We just do what feels right.
Liam, talk to me about your and Maggie's relationship.
It was kind of crazy at times. It wasn't, we would fight and stuff, but not a lot. And we would see, like, a lot of siblings, they would fight and they would be, like, hold grudges and stuff, or, like, kind of make it last long. For us, it was just, like, we were best friends, like, 20 minutes later. So, and we were so close in age. Like, Tori, she was 7 when I was born. Mm-hmm. So, by the time I was, like, a kid, she was starting high school. Like, by the time I could actually, like, hang out and, like, remember, she was in high school and college. So, we were still bonded and stuff, but I was just a lot closer with Maggie just because she was closer in age to me.
And you addressed David with those things, that he stole your best friend from you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. A future of your kids growing up together.
I never had, like, her brother doesn't have any kids. She never had any first cousins, so that was I have first cousins on my dad's side, but it was I really wanted that to be something that would be important. That's something that's important to me for my kids. And that I'm not only losing nieces and nephews, she's also losing grandkids. So now, and my little sisters, I'm 18 years older than her, so our kids will never be, like, close in age. And then Tori's 7 years older than me, so we probably won't have kids close in age. So that was, like, my one chance to have them, like, almost be, like, more like siblings. Because I wanted that. But it did feel good to, like, tell them that, too. That's what all that stuff, I know I read it on outside, but it was a lot better in the courtroom, obviously, because I had more, like, emotion with it.
When they were little, they were 3 years apart, but it was almost like they were twins. I mean, they were just and Maggie never understood the age gap. Like when he first got a phone, that was it.
Yeah.
She didn't understand why. The day I brought her home from the hospital, I sat that carrier down on the floor and he just turned it this way. Don't look at her. Don't look at her. He didn't want anybody around her. That was like his baby.
That's why.
And that was they were just. And when one would go to a sleepover or something at someone else's house, the other would just be like, mad. Like they just, and it ended up through baseball and things like that almost all of their friends were kind of like his friend Aiden had sister Aubrey,
but
Parker had sister Lakeland, like, and they just kind of had all these.
Me and some of my friends that are the same age as me, we hang out. We have a lot of friends that are like a year and 2 years younger than us. Like a lot of our friends are like that. And then they were friends with older people. So we were kind of friends with all the same people. That's what's cool thing about living in a small town. Instead
of
living in like
party that it was his friends and her friends, and of course Maggie liked all his
the
friends.
older friends that she was friends with, or like the younger ones that I was friends with. So it kind of just all meshed together. That's why I really wanted to have that one or 2 years when we was in college together. It just would have been funny, I think.
But you were robbed of that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Maggie was an older
Yeah, she was
junior.
older.
She was like missed the cutoff by like 4 days. So I mean, they really did have it in a small town like that. He said, and like his friends, they all had, a lot of them had younger sisters, and she was friends with, and so I mean, they all knew each other. They all hung out.
Tori said something very important. Your older sister and your oldest daughter. She forgave David. Do you forgive David?
You have to. And I've said that so many times too. The thing about, you know, if you hold a grudge, it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. I can't spend my life being angry. And it's not for him. Like she said, it's not. He and I went to Ash Wednesday Mass together, and the whole homily was a lot about forgiveness. And we talked about that night. Like, do you think you could forgive him? And it was, yeah. I mean, it'd be nice for him to ask for forgiveness, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you don't always get.
You got an apology.
Right.
Yeah, or Monday was the first time
Sort of.
you've got an apology.
Mm-hmm.
Did it mean anything?
You know, that day it seemed very just phony. But the more I talked, even with my husband last night, I really do think he is
A good
sorry.
person.
I don't know if he's a good person.
I know he's
I don't know
sorry,
much
but
about
he
his
could
life,
be,
but
he could be
I think
a good
he is
person.
sorry. And sometimes, of course, if you were facing jail time, you'd be sorry. But I do think he's sorry because he has children. He has 3 or 4 kids. How can anybody with children not feel bad about that? But you know, some things in your life, you'll never get an apology. You'll never get a, you know, you'll never be asked for forgiveness, but you still have to give it because you do that for you.
I want to read some of what he did say, and his was very short.
Mm-hmm. What he said
He
was,
said, because of my decisions in November, your families will never be the same. I apologize. Nothing I say will bring those kids back. But then, Liam, he straight up said to you, I am so sorry for the pain I have caused you. Did that mean anything to you?
I think, like I told you yesterday, it was kind of generic at the time. I feel like he could have showed it more the day that everything happened by, you know, like rendering aid and stuff, like staying at the scene trying to help out. Because they said by the time y'all got there, he was gone.
He was at the hospital.
But I mean, he would have been the first person there, so he could have helped somewhat. That would have probably meant more than
that would have meant everything.
Staying at the thing, talking to them. Because I was gone by the time they had got there. But
what is the one thing you both want to say to the public? Be it about yourself, be it a lesson that you've learned. Liam, you're 20 now or 21?
21.
21 now.
21 in November.
What do you want to say to our listeners?
I really want to say that it's been a long road, but we would have never been able to do any of this without the community that we live in, the people in Brusly and Plaquemine, that whole area, all the west side. If this would have happened in Baton Rouge, no telling what could have came of it. But we have great friends and that were willing to do anything to help out.
You did not even cook for, weeks, months on end because everybody was bringing over food.
Yeah,
I remember
you
telling me
pick us up
that.
and bring us to their house.
Aaron, same question.
I would definitely have to reiterate that. And I mean, and I've said a million times, that whole side is, they're not praying hands on Facebook. They are just come sit at my house so that I'm not alone, because that's one thing that I was not ready for, was the quiet, you know. But do you need anything? Do you just want to talk? Just call me just so that I have somebody to sit on the phone with. I mean, we're talking like a whole community of strangers who became friends, and friends who have become literal family. And that's like one of Maggie's favorite movies was Collateral Beauty. And that's what I like to say is kind of some of the collateral beauty that's come out of this. And, you know, that, and maybe this possible legislation that we're working on, all
Tell
those
us about
things of that. So Caleb Kleinpeter, who's the senator from our area, he has been a family friend for a long time, and being from over there, he's obviously very affected by the whole thing, just like everyone in our community is. And so he actually reached out to us about just wanting to do something. So we put together a task force to kind of look at this problem of high-speed pursuits. And hopefully this is just the first step, that there's going to be a bill that comes afterwards. So they did pass a resolution that, what they want to see happen, uniform pursuit policy, more funding for training, especially in these like smaller municipalities. So that's kind of the goal, is to see a bill come afterwards. Something that would be passed like in the girl's name, just to change how pursuits are handled.
That's what I was going to ask. What will be the name?
Oh, I don't know.
Or the number. I thought there was this.
We had kind of we said that maybe we could somehow work that little 310 into there after 310 BAM.
For people who have no idea what that is, what is the 310 BAM?
So Maggie, Abby, and Brooklyn, they've been best friends since pretty much the day they met in 3rd grade. So that's where the BAM comes from, the initials, and then 310, because obviously they're 310s. But it was the whole numbering system. So then when they had their other two good friends, it would be like 510 Mamba or 710 Mumbaka, like not even an option that anybody might be an 8 or a 9 in there. So he actually was kind of joking around, like maybe he could move in with the girls instead of moving in with some stinky, nasty boys. Yeah, he was like, y'all could clean for me. He was like, maybe he could move in with Brooklyn and Abby and they could call it the 310 Lab. Like, y'all got it. So.
Well, we thank you guys for joining us. Liam, thank you for opening up. In fact, I have to say this, that right before we started, it was so nice to see you smiling.
He's so handsome.
He is.
And single.
Uh-oh. Mom's saying 21-year-old LSU student single here.
But it's an interview process. Like,
okay. They got to go through Mom. Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for opening up and for sharing your story.
Thank you. And thank you for always being so good with your coverage.
You're welcome.
Of this whole story. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Welcome back, listeners. We are joined by Kim Elliott and Mallory Gill. This is the older sister of Caroline Gill and her mom. I guess, Kim, let's start with you. What have the last 15 months been like for you?
I would have to say it's been like being on a roller coaster, when you lose a child, it has such an impact on your whole life. Everything you do, nothing seems normal, nothing seems right. But when you have other children, you have to pick up yourself, keep moving, do things you probably don't want to do. There are times you feel like you probably would prefer to lay in bed and go to sleep and not have to deal with the outside world, but you can't. And I feel like what we've had going on with the court case has also affected that, because at times, not that you can ever forget, but you can separate or try to separate yourself from it, for long enough to maybe have things be a little normal. But then you get pulled back in, and you have to talk about things.
Is there a guilt trip for feeling normal?
Oh, absolutely. Even though I know it's not something to feel guilty about, and I don't think that'll ever change. I think that's just the rest of your life.
Mallory, same question. Last 15 months. This is your first time speaking up with us.
It is. I feel like it's somehow happened in the busiest, one of the busier seasons of my life, at least. Like, I graduated high school, got into college, and so, like, I was trying to have all those transitions in the midst of already in a transition, as in going from a life with Caroline and then to a life without. So it was very, as much as I hated to admit it, confusing. And it made all those transitions much harder than they kind of already are. And I don't know, but we were lucky enough to have, I have plenty of siblings and parents as well to help with that. So, and lots of friends, a great community to help. And our community does a great job of keeping both Caroline and Maggie and their spirits alive. And so I never feel as though they're forgotten. And that helps a lot. And I still live at home. I'm in college, but I live at home. So that helps.
I don't think that's going to change, by the way. Erin told us that Liam's not allowed to move out.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, I don't want any of my kids to leave.
So you're stuck at home now. Just a heads up.
Just stay. No rush.
Mallory, if you're comfortable, take us to that day.
So obviously New Year's, me and Maggie were in the same friend group, and Caroline was also in that friend group. So we were all planning on celebrating. It was like 7 of us that night, and we had all been talking about it. And I had work from 9:30 to 4 that day, I believe. And my job is I work at a boutique, and I am the social media manager. So my job is to literally be on social media, and the primary one being Facebook. And I remember around like 12:30-ish, 12:45, I open on the work phone Facebook, and I see like a picture from walk-ons of like just the chaos. I can't really remember if the crash itself was in it, and somebody was like, y'all, this accident in front of walk-ons is just absolutely terrible. And so I said out loud, I was like, oh my gosh, y'all, like, this is insane. There's no way like this actually happened in front of walk-ons. There's a chase. I remember seeing the cops pass in front of my work because it's like 2 miles from that. I don't work very far. And I was working with my now boss, and then she's hearing my phone vibrate. My phone's on Do Not Disturb. So he probably called me 3 times and before I picked up. And I was like, oh, that's weird, Mr. Jason. Like, I don't know. They know I'm at work. It's weird for them to call me. So I'm like, hello. And he's asked me if I have Maggie's mom's number. I was like, well, what's going on? He was like, there's just an accident. And I just felt it in me, like, something's not right. I hadn't even really put the dots, like connected the dots that, same accident. And so I called Miss Erin because I actually had to get her number from a friend of mine that was also on the cheer team. And I call her. I was just like, I'm just letting you know, my stepdad called me. There was an accident. It's here in front of walk-ons. I don't have Mr. Randall's number. I would call him too. And so they headed there. And then I start looking at Live 360. And I'm like, well, it says Caroline's there. And all my friends somehow knew more than I did. So they were all at the scene. And so they were texting me. So I kind of had gotten that hint. So then somebody from work, at that point, I had pretty much calmed down. Somebody from work brought me to the accident, and not directly like all up in it. I was kind of by Bayou Bistro on the service road. And I started walking, and then I saw my dad running towards me, and it was kind of just like a click. Then Mr. Jason pulled up, got in the car. He brought me to the house, and then at that point, nobody had directly said. So I walk in, and she's like, nobody has directly said anything to us. So we're all just very confused, sitting on the couch. I think my nanny was there. And then, like, the school sent Subway, and then people started coming over, and then I don't even know if anybody directly said, like, Caroline and Maggie passed away and Liam's in the hospital. But it was at that point we kind of all got the hint. And then it just was chaos from there. I went to my dad's house, and I remember them having to go get my little siblings and tell them. And Charlotte just walking in the house and just wanting to sit in my lap. And it was all just so fever dreamy. Like, how is this actually happening? But very much did.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like like us never being able to say, Caroline is dead. I feel like that was me, because I do remember I remember calling my mom after Jason had already brought me back home, and I was so confused because, I mean, I had been out there, I had seen all of it, but I guess when you're in that situation, you just don't want to believe those things, and I was so confused, and when I got home, I called my mom, and I was like, I think Caroline's dead, and she was like, what do you mean you think? And I said, I think she is. I'm so confused, even though I knew it.
You didn't want to admit it.
Yeah, so...
But there were also so many different rumors, and nobody seemed to really have any direct explanations. Like, I had gotten so many texts from different people saying so many different things. Some people didn't think Liam was in the car. Some people did think Liam was in the car. Some people thought Liam was driving. It was all very confusing, and that made it 10 times harder because you already don't want to believe. And then you're like, oh, well, what if this is true? Like, what if I need to believe this instead? It was all very confusing.
Yeah, and had we not happened upon the accident the way that we did, I probably would have found out from somebody else. Somebody would have probably, because immediately people started texting me, apologizing and saying how sorry they were. So I would have gotten that before I wouldn't have even known anything was going on had we not seen it ourselves.
And Kim, you and Jason have told me in the past how y'all came upon this. This pursuit, you drove right past it.
Yes, they were going north on LA1, and we were southbound on the service road. So when you look at all the videos, you see us passing.
And Jason made a comment. Your husband made a comment. What did he say?
Well, I said, this is what makes it so hard to allow your children to drive and be on the road, and because it's so dangerous, because look at how they're driving. I mean, it was bad, and there was a lot of cops. So, and there was people, all over the road.
And least did you know.
And I still can't put all the pieces together because I know, because in my mind as a parent, you want to, this kid is here, this kid is here, these kids are here. In my mind, I feel like I checked where she was at, but maybe I didn't, but I knew she was at work. Or maybe it was that I had already checked, like maybe an hour before, and I knew they had made it from Maggie's dad's to Maggie's mom's. I didn't realize they were, going to be running errands and doing other stuff. So very surreal. You feel like almost like you're not in your body. Looking at it, I knew. I just didn't want to believe it.
Has reality sunk in 15 months later?
Not really.
I remember when we interviewed about 13, 14 months ago, you told me you go in her room, you lay in there, you still expect her to come home. And when she's not in front of you, you feel like she's just in her room.
Yes, and my little girls they find a little bit of peace or comfort. They've set up some stuff in there to play with, so they go in there and play. Some just to be around her stuff, I guess, and feel like maybe they're a little bit closer to her or can remember her. I don't know. It's a tough thing, especially when you have little kids who don't really know how to express themselves. Even for Mallory, I mean, that's, you deal with things as they come along, I guess. And we talk about her. And I feel like we don't over talk about her, but we do bring her up and talk about memories and moments, and we try not to leave her out of things the best we can.
Yeah. And I'm still friends with like her friends and also that shared friend group that we had. So it's like I can come home and tell them about how, I hung out with Aubrey and Abby in Brooklyn. And it's like, well, Caroline would have been there. And then you just kind of, it helps to connect the dots a little bit of like, she is a missing piece, but, and her friends still talk about her all the time. So it's easy in that aspect. But it definitely is like, I don't know, reality check. I personally don't go to the mausoleum very often. That's just something difficult for me. I can't really find peace in that aspect of it. I know it's very different for her. She goes every day. I can't, but I find more peace in being with her friends and talking about her. And I mean, I don't think it'll ever feel like a reality when it's somebody that was in your life for every single day for so long. It's not just going to click and be like, oh, they're not here anymore. You're always going to have that moment of, let me pick up the phone and call Caroline. And you just realize you can't.
Yeah, we still have her phone connected.
Yeah.
Disconnected it.
Mallory, how has this changed your life? I mean, you guys were, what, a year, 2 years apart?
Yeah,
2
about 2
years
years.
and 4 months.
Yeah. So since then, I have little things changed my major. I was kind of in the air about where I was going to go to school. That kind of helped me decide. But overall, so me and Caroline were the product of we were the full biological siblings, and then the rest are half. Still love them the same. But so we had hopped between my mom and my dad's house together. We shared rooms together. So like now I don't have that shared space of somebody I know I can tell absolutely everything to with no judgment. And obviously I've found my people that help that make it a little bit easier, but it's still never going to be the same. And overall, it just makes walking through life a lot harder. You know, if I'm being transparent, I used to be a very determined, driven, get out of bed, like do everything. And now I find it is hard to, focus on schoolwork or simple things. And it does help. I have involved myself in a sorority or on-campus stuff, and that helps, keep me on track and keep going. But I have noticed, I'm not that same, not on the exact same mindset, but I feel like I'm getting back towards it.
I want to brag on you, though. Despite all of that, you graduated valedictorian from Brusly High. You lost your sister. You lost your friend. And you still graduated valedictorian.
I did have a lot of help, but I can remember, so there was a race of 6 of us in the running for valedictorian at the time of when they passed. And before that, I had just gotten Student of the Year. And I was like, I hope this isn't oh, you're getting Student of the Year because you might not get valedictorian. I don't know how that was working in my head. And Caroline was like, please be quiet. You're going to get it. You have to get it. You can't let 5 other people beat you out of it. And so after that, even after she wasn't here, I was like, that is something I know I can do that I know she would be proud of. And I could feel that pride in her because I just know she would be walking around school saying, my sister was valedictorian. So she was just hilarious. So I feel like that was more, I knew I had to do it for her. But
And when you got it?
That was crazy. So during end of February, I think, I really didn't think I was going to. I was having a lot of trouble in just one class. And at that point in time, it was such a tight race that, that one grade absolutely was going to make it or break it. And so I was at the point of, they were telling me, it's not the end of the world if you don't get it. Please don't make yourself miserable over just this one accomplishment. But I was like, I need to do it. And finally, I did overcome that one class that was in my way. But it was, I remember here, we didn't get the news until probably 3 days before graduation. And it was after finals, after all these, I had, I think 5 finals that determined whether or not we got it or not. And it was just crazy I walked in my guidance counselor's office and she was like, you got valedictorian. And I was just smiling from ear to ear, and I knew that I had help from someone above to get there.
For as young as you are, I feel like you were forced to mature really quickly. You're the oldest, and I'm assuming there's this feeling from inside that I got to be there for my mom and dad on top of everything too. But in that moment, did you feel there was an underlying message that I can actually do what I set my heart to?
Yes, it was very almost empowering. Like, I had met all these obstacles head on and still met that goal. So no matter what happened in what world, I could still do what I needed to do. And luckily, like, they never made me feel like I couldn't come home, just say I had a bad day, like, or call them and say, can you please check me out? Because, I mean, I couldn't just leave school. I was still in high school. I'd say, hey, I'm having a really bad day. Can I just check out? I don't think I can go to this class. They'd be like, yeah, sure, come home. We'll go get something to eat. It's that and the fourth. And I think that also really helped. I never felt pressured to have to make all these things happen. It was just like, we're here if you do, we're here if you don't. And couldn't have done it alone.
Kim, you raised her. What are these? I'm looking at you as you answer these questions, or she's answering. How proud are you?
Oh, extremely proud. I mean, Mallory has, as she said, she's always been very driven, and there's, things throughout her school life that, she would set a goal and she would achieve the goal. And from a pretty young age, they were all talking about valedictorian. She even has a little letter.
It was in my, third grade note to myself. What third grader is thinking about valedictorian?
Yeah.
Mallory Gill.
Yes.
Yes, the same girl who wanted to get perfect attendance and, went to school sick and was like, I cannot miss. I need perfect attendance. And then after it was all over, she's like, all they did was call my name. And give me a certificate. I'm not doing that again. I was like, yeah, well.
And then you had
you did
Caroline. Then you have Caroline who, she cared and she was going to get good grades, but she was also going to have fun. She was in the same clubs as me, but she'd be like, can we go get donuts before the meeting or something? We were on the same wavelength, but also on totally opposite.
Yeah, she didn't take everything too hard.
No.
Like you did.
Yeah.
She always ended up successful, but didn't take it as personal as me.
I think that's an older child syndrome.
Absolutely.
I'm older, and I can say this. I busted my butt to study and study and study. My brother was one of those, it just came to him.
Mm-hmm. I'm a major perfectionist, and she was like,
She didn't care.
no, just get a B. Just get a B. It's going to be okay. I was like, no, can't do that.
So this week, trial was supposed to start on Monday for David Cothran, and instead he chose a plea deal that you guys kind of discussed and you were okay with, correct?
So I would use those words. We accepted it, and we're okay with it. I do not think it is what he deserved. But, laws are written the way they're written. People get punished the way they do, and we can't change that. I personally feel like this will not change his life enough. And that's just how I feel. Because I feel like our lives are forever changed. Forever. All of us. In anything we do. And I just don't feel like that will be the same for him. I'm not saying that this has not changed his life, but it's not in the depth that ours has been changed.
And you said in court in your victim impact statement that looking at him, and he did not return looking at you.
I did tell him I did believe he deserved a life sentence and that he didn't get one. But he did deserve it, and that truly is my opinion. And I know some people probably don't agree in the sense that he didn't set out that day to do what he did, and so for some people that changes it. It does not change it for me.
Mallory, same question. Were you okay with this? I mean, he's gonna get 10 years behind bars.
I think I've had to make myself believe that everything does happen for a reason. And I think that maybe this isn't the end of his quote unquote punishment. Maybe in some way, shape, or form, this is going to have an even deeper impact on his life later on that doesn't involve being behind bars. That's what helps me sleep at night, because I also agree I don't think 10 years is enough, but I do know we live in a world where that in reality, that was probably the max of what he was going to get. And I hope that there is a deeper impact there. And I kind of agree with her. While he didn't set out to do it that day, he made the conscious decision. I know he probably didn't wake up in the morning and was like, I hope I run into a car today full of kids. But when he knew 9 seconds beforehand, he made a conscious decision.
Our listeners don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about at the 9 seconds?
So there is, what is it, dash cam footage, is that the right word? And audio of 9 seconds before the impact, the actual impact of the accident, where he says, like, this is going to hurt. And at that moment, he is acknowledging that he knows he is endangering people, and he is going to put someone in harm. And that's when his law enforcement abilities completely went out the window. You're no longer keeping our city, our state safe, which is your duties as a police officer, when you know that you are putting someone else in harm's way that is innocent. They had done nothing. They weren't running a red light. They were not going to do anything bad. Like, there was no reason that they should have been in harm's way, and he put them there. So, I mean, to me, it's the same as, like, getting drunk and getting behind the wheel. You're making a conscious decision that you may hurt somebody. He made the conscious decision to continue going after he knew he was going to hit them. He could have swerved to JW's, to the ditch, to anywheres, but he just kept going towards him. He could have tapped his brakes, and he chose to not do all of that. So I think in due time, he will, hopefully, in my heart, I think there will be a deeper impact of this, even if it's not behind bars.
What was it like in court to see him?
It was not what I expected at all.
Why do you say that?
I was worried that seeing him in person was gonna make me feel some type of sympathy for him, because I like to put myself in other people's shoes, and I was worried that that's what that was going to do to me, especially if he was emotional. But then, I mean, the minute he gave a 3-sentence apology that didn't seem all that authentic, that worry went out the window. It's like, I'm not all that concerned with feeling bad for him.
Same.
I agree. That's why we got up and left.
And I was going to say, Jason and you walked out. They asked that he wanted to say something and if any family wanted to leave, and you guys left out. Why?
Because there is nothing that he can say, sorry isn't good enough. Sorry doesn't change it. Sorry doesn't bring my child back. So I don't want to hear it. And we've had all this time go by. So the I'm sorry that we're getting now is self-serving. That is not an I'm sorry for us. That's an I'm sorry for him.
Your ex-husband, Mallory, your dad, was front row, and he held a picture of Caroline to where David could see it when he decided to speak. You saw that?
Yeah, I did.
Did you hear what your dad said?
Which one of them? My dad and my dad's dad both said something.
Her grandpa said something.
He said when in the middle of his apology, while David was responding and apologizing, your dad said, "Fuck you."
That was actually her grandpa.
Oh, then
Yeah.
your
Louis Gill. They're basically the same person.
Okay,
though.
well then the grandfather said that, but your
Yes.
dad said you should have braked.
My dad did say that.
What was going through you to hear that?
I mean, honestly, I think it's both of their opinions, and they're both right, and I can say I agree. But I don't think that even affected David. I had my eyes on him the whole time, because they told him to turn and look at us, and so like he was just kind of gazing the audience, and I mean, he didn't seem affected by their opinions or their words, and that's when it kind of clicked for me. Like, this apology isn't for us, it's like she said, it's for him, because he did not care what they had to say. And
Yeah, and I think that because the general public did not see that video or hear that audio, even though the video was released from the light pole, to actually show the wreck, the video from inside of the car, it just, when we watched it for the first time, I think we were all sitting there with our mouths hanging open, because it was just no cars, There wasn't any cars stopped on the highway in front of him. He had vision very far. You could see them. You could see them. So, I think when you watch that and you hear what he said,
It's hard to accept the apology.
Yes, because he should have tapped his brakes. He should have. They said he could have completely come to a stop. If he would have normally applied his brakes, he could have completely come to a stop. He had that long. So I know that this is a hard situation, because it seems to put a negative light on law enforcement. And I don't think negatively of all law enforcement. We're not those people. But I do believe he was wrong. He did wrong. He was not just doing his job. It was not that simple.
With court on him over now, in this case, not over, he has to turn himself in, and then you still have to get through the man who they were pursuing. That has yet to even get to trial. Do you feel, I'm not going to say closure. I don't believe a family ever gets closure anymore. Do you feel you have a little justice?
No. And I just don't think it's achievable, to be honest. If I would like to think if he went to jail for life, that would feel like a little bit of justice, but and that may sound like, how do you please? That may sound like we just can't be pleased, but, I think it's just hard to get there whenever that's your little kid who wasn't doing anything wrong.
Same question, Mallory.
I've kind of said since the beginning, I've kind of felt differently for like the first month. And then after that, I kind of realized that it didn't matter if he got locked up tomorrow and went to jail for 150 years. Nothing is going to bring them back at the end of the day. And obviously I don't want him running the streets, living his best life whenever we're dealing with grief and heartache for the rest of ours. But Caroline and Maggie aren't here anymore. So either way, it's unfortunate, but I am glad that that chapter is closed for now. Or at least will be on May 23rd.
Yep.
Yeah, and I do believe that we got as much as we could get, I believe. I do believe that. There was a time when I didn't think that was going to be the case, but I do now.
Well, I pray for peace for all of you guys. It's been 15 months, and I can't believe 15 months has gone by. I still remember sitting in the living room and that very first interview and just wiping away tears to being in court earlier this week. But I'll say the same thing to you, Kim, that I told Aaron. Look, you have reason to be proud.
Absolutely. And I think if something good, and I don't know if good is the right word, can come out of this, I think it's educating people on what happened and what we can do differently. And I look at that to be from both directions, trying to control the criminals and the people who are fleeing, and also having a little bit more control over, police following the statute that's already written. That there are rules and laws in place that would have prevented this. They just did not follow them. So, and I don't know if you heard Tony say, he, in addition to saying that David would need to speak with high school students, he did add, because we asked, that if there were groups of law enforcement that would have him, he also would go speak with them.
Okay, good. That's one of the conditions of the plea deal,
Yes.
that he has to speak to high schoolers about his experience to try to hopefully avoid things like this ever happening again. Not staying in the West Baton Rouge Parish Prison.
Supposedly, but they couldn't promise.
Yeah,
But I feel like he's going to go where they said he would
exactly.
go. Yeah. I know that his behavior that day does not represent what all of law enforcement would have done. But still, I hope they would be open to listening to what took place that day and what could have been done differently that maybe could have saved Maggie and Caroline.
Well, I thank both of you guys for coming and speaking. Mallory, thank you for opening up. First time interview, correct?
Yes.
Well, thank you for opening up. Kim, thank you for opening up and opening your home and heart to me 15 months ago when all this happened. And I'm very blessed to have been along this journey with you guys.
As we are blessed to have had you, because as we know, everybody is not trustworthy.
Well, thank you guys.
And you are.
Thank you. To our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Louisiana Unfiltered, and we will see you next week.